very good morning to everybody. Welcome to Sunrise City this lovely morning. I'm Chamberlain. What's up?
Well, it's a Thursday morning, just so you know, 28 degrees here in Lagos. I'm Ayo marking it. Today is February 12, and welcome to the show. Well, you know what? I find it a bit curious, Chamberlain, that something happened, in a place, in Rivers State, in Bayelsa State, and it would seem like many people may not even be aware of it simply because they call it a scare. Meanwhile, even in the same Bayelsa State, we understand that there was a fatal event that occurred. We'll come to that later. Just yesterday, while some people were probably celebrating their birthdays elsewhere, others were panicky. You know that at about 6 in the morning yesterday, the Secretariat complex on Melford Okilo Road had an explosion. So, and of course, you may have heard from the police commissioner in the state saying that he had an explosion and he began to make some calls. Thankfully, we understand there are no deaths, no significant injuries, no property damage caused, and we are thankful that the anti-bomb squad got to work and cordoned off the area. The impact of that, Chamberlain, affected about 6,000 civil servants. They suspended work temporarily. Some initial reports of the incident were met with confusion. Some, were just wondering, conflicting reports here and there suggesting it was a false alarm before the explosion was officially confirmed. Thankful for the intervention of the police and their anti-bomb squad. We also have seen fire service equipment facility going out on there. Eternal vigilance, I think you've quoted that thing, before. Eternal vigilance is the price of freedom or something like that. I don't know how you say it, Chamberlain. I'm wondering what we make of this, because the cause of it is just one fellow who felt betrayed by the country. I don't know, by his state. I don't know what one can make of that, because I don't know any Nigerian, at least most Nigerians would say, well, I haven't felt, something good about my country for a while, but would it be as severe, Chamberlain, as picking a bomb somewhere and trying to get attention by being a terrorist of sorts? Chamberlain.
Well, let's listen to, in fact, first of all, the visuals you see there. Look, we've highlighted some of these things several times in terms of what is expected, the standards, and how things are done. This is supposed to be the EOD, the Explosive Ordnance Department, and so you should know that when you carry out it's a very life and death kind of situation almost all the time, because you do not know what you will likely meet, because you could even be as professional, as very good, and then you still miss it and things still go awry. But some of the images we saw there, it left me befuddled, because was that an EOD official trying to have a cellophane bag in his hands as what? I was struggling to actually wrap my head around what we were seeing, what was happening in terms of, is that the standard operating procedure that they have? No, not this one, guys. I mean, the part where he was just scrambling for any of those, I think what we call nylon bags here, and then you just use it as what? As gloves? Oh dear, it just raises questions as to how these kind of things happen. But you know that these kind of scenarios, they work a lot with forensic labs. And yeah, that's the part. Is that the part? Okay, so you could clearly see that none of them had gloves in terms of, were they actually prepared for this? Look at that, he's using his fingers. So if they were supposed to take them to forensics, you could know that some of those would have been compromised, as it were. And this is an EOD department that's supposed to be very professionally trained in handling some of these things. And then add to that, guys, If you listen to the Commissioner of Police when he was speaking there, he said the Pentecost, that's his name actually, the man, Mr. Pentecost, a 60-year-old man, confessed, which is the narrative that we hear a lot of times. Police tell you, oh, they confess to the crime, so they are guilty. But the challenge with some of those narratives is, well, assuming he did confess, saying, yes, I did it, and then the police relaxes and then charges him based on his confession, so to speak. And then the gentleman gets to court and then changes it and says, look, I said that under duress. I was compelled to say so. And so I've come to my senses now. I didn't do it. I was forced to do it. And then if the authorities cannot present any hard facts that this gentleman in question actually did it, because if you have the EOD team's fingerprints all over the place, modeling up the entire scenario, you leave yourselves between the devil and the deep blue sea. And I hope that reporters also need to take precaution in terms of how they go with EOD officials to cover some of this, to report some of these assignments, because you never know what you may find. So you need to maintain at least some safe distance, and then you need to guard your loins properly as well with your safety gear while also going in there. Don't rely on some of what you see there, because it's just something that I think we need to actually revisit. If we spend a lot of money on security agencies time and again, it is expected that minimum standards be applied at all times. It's a profession. It's not just for, you don't anyone. They're supposed to be properly set up. They have police academy. They train. They are supposed to be training for these things. I don't want to believe that this is how the training or the results of the, well, I know they'll tell you, but what you see is what you get. It means something is fundamentally wrong with the mindset, with the training, with the way they operate and carry out their duties. We don't want to see them lose their lives just like that, because they could have avoided it. So moving forward, look, it wouldn't be a bad idea for them to revisit their operations and see how do we ensure safety first. It's EOD, for goodness sakes. You can't be grappling, you get to the place and you just see a cellophane bag, you pick it up and you're touching whatever it is. In 2026, I almost said 2027, because election folks have filled my head with all sorts of 2027 procedures. But guys, just to highlight all of that. So let's go ahead now and take you to the next item which we've got for you today. Now, as you may know, a bill titled the Nigeria Religious Freedom and Accountability Act of 2026 has been introduced in the United States House of Representatives. It has not yet been debated, it's not been passed, but its introduction alone is significant. The proposed legislation calls for a comprehensive report on U.S. efforts to address what lawmakers describe as religious persecution and mass atrocities in Nigeria. At a time when Nigeria continues to battle insurgency, banditry, and deadly communal violence, the framing of our security crisis as a matter of religious persecution is now formally before the U.S. Congress. If this bill gains traction, it could shape how Washington engages Nigeria diplomatically, militarily, and economically. So, what is driving this narrative? We're joined this morning by Nigerian lawyer and human rights advocate Frank Uto, who recently testified before the U.S. Congress as well on the killings in the Middle Belt. Good morning, Mr. Uto. Thank you for joining us on the program today.
Thank you very much. Good morning, Chamberlain. Good morning, Nigeria.
So, go ahead. Give us a little bit of a background how we got here in terms of this bill being introduced in the Congress.
All right, thank you very much. So today I'm speaking not just as Frank Uto, a survivor and a witness to the genocide in Nigeria, but also as a media relations associate of Equipping the Persecuted and Truth Nigeria. So before now, we've seen a lot of Nigerians testify before the U.S. Congress on this. And like I said in my previous outing on your TV channel, I said the U.S. did not on her own just stood up to prioritize this matter. It is we, the victims. It is we, the survivors, who have complained to the US because we feel we've not been protected enough by our own government. The government that has whose primary responsibility is to secure our lives and property. And so this bill is the bill of the Nigerian people, especially the survivors, the witnesses to the genocide in Nigeria, especially the people of Benue State, Plateau State, Southern Kaduna, Taraba, and many other Christian communities in the Northeast and Northwest. So we saw it coming because the people involved in the framing of this bill were so much involved in what is happening in Nigeria. They have so much facts. And like I told you, I'm the media relations associate right now of Truth Nigeria. If you listen to them during congressional hearings, most of the congressional hearings, many of the congressmen were making references to Truth Nigeria sources. And then a lot of them went to Nigeria. They had their boots in coats, boots on the ground. So Riley Moore was in Benue recently. He spoke to people from my community, my relatives, the Yerota IDPs, and the bill, finally, it's a dream come true because a lot of people from Nigeria and within the US who are Nigerians testified before the US and gave them every evidence they need, every data, every video and every picture. We saw clerics like my Lord Bishop Chipa Anagbe of the Diocese of Makurdi, the Catholic Diocese of Makurdi, my big brother Father Remigius Ihula. These persons were mentioned in the bill as persons that have been threatened because they've decided to speak truth. So it's our bill actually, but promulgated, enacted here, about to be enacted here in the US.
So, what would you say to those who are concerned that, look, the framing of the violence as primarily religious persecution may simplify what they think is also land governance and criminality issue?
Okay, so we've always known, Chamberlain, it is a mischaracterization to call this farmer sellers crisis or any of such euphemisms they've been using. This is outright genocide. And let me tell you, if you have any doubt, the governor of Kwara has recently cleared that doubt. When the over 200 and something people were killed in Woro, in Kayama local government in Kwara, the governor came out to say the terrorists killed these people because they refused to adhere to their own radical form of Islam. That was what the governor said. So they killed some of these Muslims because they refused to adhere to their radical form of Islam. So imagine if they kill Christians. What does that mean? They killed them for their faith. So the governor of Kwara has recently cleared that doubt. I'm from a farming community, Yerwata. We don't have any neighboring Fulani community. None whatsoever. Even though they've been provided sanctuary in many parts of Nasarawa State. It's from that part of Nasarawa State that they do come to attack our people. So how can you term that as farmer sellers crisis when these people are in their own ancestral land, staying peacefully and being attacked randomly by these terrorist organizations? So if there's any doubt about this, like I said, Kwara governor has sorted out, and then this bill has also sorted it out because it is no longer farmer sellers crisis. It is potentially a terrorist organization killing people in Nigeria. And of course, in line with the Immigration and Nationality Act of the US in section 212 and 219 particularly, these persons have made the criteria of a foreign terrorist organization. And you saw they listed the likes of Meati Allah, Kautahori, and the other group, Magba.
But as a lawyer, you also do know that this cannot be one-sided. So all of these persons that have been listed, how do they get to hear from these people? Are they going to have opportunities to speak about what they are being accused of?
Okay, so the bill has just been introduced. Yeah. Before it was introduced on the floor, 2 days ago, 2 days before it was introduced, 3 days before it was introduced. It was sent to us from Congressman Smith and Congressman Radimo. They sent the bill to us to go through it, peruse it, and endorse. So we went through the bill 3 days before it was introduced on the House. And for me, I accept every aspect of the bill, except maybe just one, the mention of Rabiu Musa Kwankwaso, because we provided a lot of names. They have many of these names, but it is stated in the bill is subject to review at every time, even if it is passed into law, because every year the bill mandates the Secretary of State and the Department of State to furnish the Congress every year with the progress being made and names, additional names to be captured for sanction, under the Global Magnitsky Act. So I have my reservation about Kwankwaso because I don't think he falls under what he's been accused, because even about Sharia, he wasn't the governor who first introduced Sharia in Nigeria, and he was quite reluctant to introduce Sharia. There are quite a number of names we gave them, and I think during the public hearing, we're going to send these names and then make those adjustments by God's grace. So first of all, this bill has been referred to the Committee on Foreign Affairs and the Committee on Appropriation, led by my own House of Reps member Tom Cole from Oklahoma here, and the Committee on Judiciary. So after this, they will set it up for public hearing where some of these amendments will be, and then they'll mark the bill before it goes to the House. And then we're also working on senators. And incidentally, rather gladly, my own senator from Oklahoma, James Lanford, is one of the co-signatories of the same bill in the Senate alongside Ted Cruz. So we're working on these senators. We're meeting with them from time to time, to make sure that this bill get passed at the end of the day. And by God's grace, it will, because the bill is completely sincere. We want a solution to our country. And besides that, besides mentioning names and groups, the bill also seeks to assist Nigeria on humanitarian grounds, security cooperation, and technical support. So it's not just punitive, it's also somehow a charity bill.
So before this bill even came to be, a lot of work has been put into it. One assumes that they would have done their homework, their research, and come up with these names. When you say you're not quite convinced about the former Governor Kwankwaso, how easy or difficult is it for people to wriggle out of this if your name has gone in to the spotlight on this bill?
Okay, so it's quite easy. There's public hearing coming up. So groups will make presentation. I think personally I'll make that presentation too, because the aim of justice is to punish people who are really offenders and not to punish the innocent. We know many of these offenders. We know the enablers of this terrorism in Nigeria, of the genocide in Nigeria. We know them. Many of them have come out clearly to show that they are the sponsors. We know some of the governors who were involved in this, past and present. Like I told you, I work with Truth Nigeria. We have intel. We have terror tracks. We have so much intel. We know the clerics who are involved, the sheikhs who are involved in this. We know the traditional rulers who are involved in this. And let me tell you, a lot of people, I've seen a lot of Nigerians talk about the sanctions that, the sanctions are basically visa ban and account freezes in the US. No, when they activate the Global Magnitsky Act, like the name global, it applies in most of these other countries, in the UK, in Canada, in the European Union, and some of America's allies in the Middle East and Asia, who are party to the Global Magnitsky Act. And so when America designates you as a person of concern under the Global Magnitsky Act, this visa freezes applies not just in the US, but to all these other countries too. And then freezing of your assets, of your account. And then very importantly, most financial transactions are carried out through the American banking system. And so it stops you too. It stops you, either you or your company or anything associated with you, from doing such a transaction anywhere in the world. So, and then every year they'll be updating the list, like I mentioned earlier, with names. So we'll be seeing names so that we will begin to know who are the sponsors of this. Unfortunately, like I said earlier, I had my reservation on the mention of Congo. So I'm a victim, so I know what I'm saying. I have my reservation because I know how even reluctant he was to
All right.
to.
So speaking about those
Sorry?
financial dealings, there are those who are at the moment say, look, already, as much as we're trying to correct an ill, but there's already some challenges that other people are facing, some unintended consequences, collateral damage, if you will, already being felt by certain persons who were supposed to have had business dealings, perhaps with their counterparts in the States, and that is under intense scrutiny. In fact, some of them have been aborted, some have missed their timelines or deadlines, and so it's already causing this financial strain for those who have dealings with their counterparts in the States, even though they say Europe has, removed Nigeria from that FATF list. But when it has to do with the States, it's already having its consequences as a result of all of this going back and forth concerning Nigeria, terrorism financing, and all of that.
Look, Chamberlain, if we want to solve this matter this week, this month, we can do it. All we need is the government to be honest with us about the challenges we face. In the US, I don't like the stigma, sorry to say, stigma or the kind of stain that has been applied to Nigerians. We know the kind of difficulties we're facing because of the United States action on Nigeria. But we caused it to ourselves. Because why should Nigeria at all points be placed alongside countries like Yemen, like Afghanistan, like Somalia, like Iraq? Every list that is negative, that is released by the United States, even if it is just 10 countries, you must see Nigeria there, placed alongside Yemen, Afghanistan. So we cause this to ourselves. If we want to solve this problem, I assure you we can solve it within this month. We can solve this every time. For me, there's nothing that is too big to be applied for the sake of security. No human life is deserved to be snuffed out just like that. Just like that. Within the last 1 week, over 300 Nigerians were killed. Majority of those in Kwara, Benue. Look at in Benue, in Kwande local government. Look at the T people that were killed in Chachanji local government, in Chachanji ward of Taku in Taraba State. About up to 15 churches were burnt in that place. And you said there's no genocide. So the world is watching and applying the sanction. So we caused all those things. But if, just like this bill has stated, they will always review it according to what the government have been doing. If the government has shown concern and genuine interest and honesty in solving this problem, the State Department will review it. And many of these things will be lifted. So it is as simple as that. Let's act so that we will remove these punitive measures imposed upon us.
You're a Nigerian, you are not totally happy with the stigma that this is bringing on Nigeria. But then there is also the concern, both politically and diplomatically, including security as well, that the oversimplification, as Chamberlain mentioned earlier, of the complex economic, political, structural, all shades and forms in which our security challenges come, to oversimplify it all as a religion or as something of just religious coloration kind of makes it difficult to really deal with the issues, don't you think?
No, it's not difficult, my brother. Ayo. I'm a lawyer. There are a lot of violent crimes. We have a lot of violent crimes, categorized differently. We have a violent crime called rape. We have a violent crime called assault and battery. We have another violent crime called kidnapping. Then another violent crime called armed robbery. There's another violent crime called terrorism. And then there's another violent crime called genocide. So what is happening to us in my community is genocide. What is happening in other communities, maybe in the northwest, maybe terrorism. What is happening in southeast of Nigeria by IPOP, by ESN, is terrorism. What is happening on the highways in some places, guys snatching phones, is armed robbery. So let's categorize this appropriately. Look, let me tell you something. My mom is a Muslim.
So couldn't
it's not an issue between Muslim and Christian. My mom, my biological mom, is a Muslim.
Just one moment. You did a good thing there, saying that these things happen all over the place. And I mean, you're absolutely right. Now, perhaps in recognition of that, the president and, of course, by extension, all of the security apparatus of the country have come out to declare and label every such violent crime, as you call it, a terrorist act. That's the federal government, that's the president making that declaration. The idea, one would expect, is put an end to all forms of criminal activity. With that labeling, all security agencies, all of our security apparatus, all of our security strategizing, focuses on dealing with whatever the crime is, so long as it is violent, as a terrorist act. Don't you think that is also something considerable?
Yes. So you say like the president of America, Donald Trump, he categorized that as genocide, right? Like many of us said, because he is banking on our own submissions to him and to the Congress. That's basically, we're talking about the killing of Christians. But like I mentioned, Nigeria is suffering with general insecurity. That is the truth. We're suffering from general insecurity. We know that a lot of Muslims are killed, but like I mentioned, I just want you to understand. I said that is actually terrorism. And let me tell you another. There's a lot of genocide going on in Nigeria for so long. The Hausa communities of the northwest have suffered ethnic genocide. It meets the criteria of anything you want to say about genocide. The Hausa communities in Katsina, in Kebbi, in Sokoto have suffered genocide in the hands of Fulani militia, ethnic genocide. Also, let's not run away from this fact. Let's create a solution to it. For me, if you want, continue to argue from tomorrow, from today till thy kingdom come. What we face in my own part of the world is outright genocide. Look, Ayo, a lot of people, when they see me talk from America, they think that I'm far away and I may be disconnected with what has been happening. I've been the face of this thing for so long in my place. In 2016, we took this matter to the ECOWAS court. In 2017, we led a protest in Abuja under the auspices of Vanguard Against Thief Massacre, VATI, to the National Assembly. I was a pivotal head of that protest. I was in the government in Benue between 2020 and 2023. I was in the government for 3 years, the government of Otum, and I was a principal special assistant, and I'm from Yerota. So we'll be facing this every time. I've met some of these jihadists, because on some occasions we do arrest them. The police do arrest them. Some occasions there's an exchange of gunfire, and some who have gunshot wound, and they'll make, I know one or two who have made died declaration, who confessed to what they are doing before they died. They want to take over the land. They want to clear away our people. What does that mean? That is genocide. You are killing people for who they are and to take their land.
So then you said something important.
Let's tell ourselves the truth.
Yeah, you said something important, and that is the fact that you said, and I quote, "We know them." So if we know them, how come we've not been able to? I always tell Chamberlain, every time I have the opportunity to speak on this program about anything in security, I don't think that our security agencies cannot handle this matter. There must be something else. So if we know the people behind it, Mr. Uto, and I think even the former president Jonathan said the same thing, some former governors have said the same thing. In your opinion, what is giving them covering from being arrested, being dealt with decisively, so all of this hogwash is over?
All right. Thank you very much. Very important question. We know these people. Look, before the Yerwata attack, the attack in my village that claimed the lives of 34 members of my immediate family, that claims the lives of over 278 of my kinsmen, we alerted the security agents. We know them. We passed this information across. Even when they were coming and they stopped over in Giza to carry out their prayers before they proceeded to Yerwata. Giza is a town in Kiana local government, just about 10 kilometers away from Yerwata. They stopped there to pray. We know them. We know the Ardo of Fulani in Kadorko who was involved in this killing. We know Manu, a guy called Manu, one of the Fulani guys. We know Sarkin Semari, the Fulani between Kadorko and Kwara axis in Omale community, a thief community that's in Kwara district of Kiana local government. And even recently, they went to that community and killed about 60 people, just about last week. I think last week. We know these people, we alerted. Look, when they were recruiting people in Giza, in Ajaragu, we alerted the security agents. They were recruiting and giving 50,000 for these guys they were recruiting. We know, see, this is not spirit. It's not spirit. We know what's been happening, and like I told you, we passed this intelligence across. When I was in Benue State between 2020 and 2023, I know how many times the security agents in Yerwata, and in collaboration with our youth, arrested many of these our killers. And by the time they took them to Makodi, what happened? The next day, they were set free. People who have come, who have been arrested, who have to come to kill, who have killed, and they were arrested just because of some powerful figures from their ethnic group at the federal level, and some were state governors at that point. So this, it filters down from the top. It's an agenda.
Okay.
It's an agenda to capture our people, to dominate our land, and that is why these people have cover. Look, ask yourself, Ayo, that Almajiri guy who has come to Yerwata wielding AK-47, that's the same Almajiri guy that you see on the road with a plastic bowl, asking you for just 100 naira, 200 naira, begging, bara, but he'll come to Yerwata, he'll come to communities in southern Kaduna, in Plateau, in Taraba, in southern part of Nasra, wielding brand new AK-47 that is worth 3.5 million naira. So they enable us, and that is why we want this law. This law by the U.S. Congress, because it targets the enablers, the financiers, the perpetrators.
Yeah,
so
Mr.
the Nigerian government also know these people.
Yes,
many of them are involved in the federal government. Many of them,
I'm glad you also mentioned, because that's the next question that I was going to ask you. We know, and I'm probably aware as well, that the U.S. and Nigeria are already working together strategically in the area of security, but there are those who would also ask you, why the US? You are a British trained lawyer. Why not Britain? Why not the United Kingdom? Why the US? There are those who would also point to you that, look, the insecurity challenges that are not as prominent or as announced or pronounced, to the world as that of Nigeria, happen a lot in the US as well. So why go to the US of all nations to ask for help? Why not Britain? Why not any other country?
Okay, it's because the US has shown more concern to us in this regard than Britain. And then the US is in the forefront of fighting global terrorism than any other country. And then the US has a concentrated department against this in the Department of State that's called Office of the International Religious Freedom, headed by my friend Isaac Six, in the Department of State. So the US has fit every angle for us to report this to. And then when you say, yes, there is insecurity in the US, look, there's insecurity all over the world, generally. But you know what? Insecurities in the US, like, let's say, school shooting, somebody just come up because, of course, the Second Amendment permits you to own gun, the right to own gun. So you come out, you see somebody on the street and shoot him, or go to school and shoot him. But look, do you know what? In the next 24 hours, that person will be arrested. So the justice system works perfectly well. Perfectly well. You'll be arrested. But what we're saying that in Nigeria, if Nigeria operates that way, we could have reached this level.
Okay, just one quick one from me.
And carry out
my sincere apologies, Mr. Oto, because we're running out of time. We have another conversation to hold. But just this one question. It's a draft bill. It's not yet a law, and as you have highlighted,
Correct.
and as is normal legislative practice, it's still going to go through a lot of processing. Now, what are your concerns about the diplomatic relationship between Nigeria and the US? Because if this law goes through as is, there are those who are concerned about the foreign relationship, the partnership, the relationship between Nigeria and the US. You don't think that could be hampered? The diplomatic relationship between Nigeria and the US could be hampered by this law, whichever way it comes out?
No, I don't think it to be there'll be an obstacle to that, because the diplomatic relationship between my dearly beloved country, Nigeria, and my host country, the US, have been consolidated even recently. And, recently I was in Washington. I saw the wife of the president. She came around to the. I attended the International Religious Freedom Summit and the National Prayer Breakfast, and she was around there. And you saw the accolades the president of Nigeria, of America, the kind of accolades he used in introducing her. So the diplomatic relationship has strengthened these days. But of course, like we call it diplomatic, it's a bilateral relationship that we need each other to fight the menace of terrorism. I think that is what's happening. And so this is not against Nigeria, it is against a certain kind of menace, the genocide happening in Nigeria. And so it is the US rather helping Nigeria. And so it will strengthen our relationship only if the Nigerian government is sincere and honest in tackling these challenges.
If the bill passes, how does it protect the farmer in Benue tomorrow?
You're good, but like I said, the U.S. Secretary of State is mandated by this bill to always review what has been happening in Nigeria. Always, and make a submission to the Congress every year about the progress we're making in Nigeria, about the farmers, our people in the IDP camp. If you go through the bill, it says our people have to go back to their ancestral home. They have no business being in the IDP camp. So the bill, if it passes, it will rather push the Nigerian government to stand up to its responsibility to protect the farmers. And that is an answer to your question. How will it be protected? It will mandate, because the government know what to do. But they are not doing it. That is what we're saying. They know exactly what to do.
So, but
they are not doing it.
The individuals mentioned are not government officials, are they?
Of course. We keep saying this. Some of the enablers of this are in government. Some are out of government. Some at some time were in government. So the individuals have their own personal individual punishment, which is different.
Okay, so as we wind down, I mean, when you say target the enablers, but there are certain twists which I'm sure perhaps you're also aware of, where these chaps, they kidnap people and then lots of money is made via ransom payments. They say that, I mean, we also understand that in some locality, there's a certain taxation that they require from those persons, so they make money in that regard as well. And then with some folks in mining, they also pay some of these people. So these guys get funds across different platforms. So targeting the enablers, and then does it how is it going to stop them from getting funds from these other means, which we also see time and again that they get funds from?
So the enablers are the same persons who design all these crimes. Like I said, if you are talking to you just mentioned something about kidnapping and the raising of money through ransom. Mm-hmm. It's quite unfortunate. I read a statistics from the NBS, Nigerian Bureau of Statistics, that stated that between 2023 and 2024, about 3.3 trillion naira was raised in ransom. You could see that's even bigger, 3 times bigger than the budget of Benue State, or 4 times bigger than the budget of Benue State. Now, there's a case right now in Nigerian court where some enablers were arraigned in court for aiding and abetting this kidnapping. If you recall, there's one of the personal assistant to Sheikh Gumi, a man called Manu, I've forgotten his first name. He's right now in court because they found ransom money in his account. So these are the enablers. By the time you begin to tackle this issue, these are the enablers. A PA to Sheikh Gumi, one man, I've forgotten the other name. He's right now in court because they found ransom money in his account. So if we tackle the enablers, I'm telling you, these guys, the foot soldiers, cannot do anything. They can easily be taken care of. So I'm more concerned with the financiers, with the patron of these guys, with the enablers, with the bigger perpetrators. The foot soldiers will be so easy to deal with. Mere police, local police will be able to handle these guys.
Frank, we'll have to anchor at that point. Thank you very much indeed for your time this morning.
All right, somebody, finally, sorry. We'll be sending relief materials to the Kwande guys, maybe this weekend, the guys in Kwande local government, way from equipping the persecuted. And we also want to thank you so much for giving us this platform to be able to air our views. We believe Nigeria will be stronger tomorrow. Thank you.
So, as you're saying, the number of issues are back in the spotlight here in Nigeria, both home and abroad, as a matter of fact. The controversy over electronic transmission of election results is far from settled, even as lawmakers defend their amendments. Meanwhile, Nigeria's security crisis is now under scrutiny, as you also have heard, the U.S. congressional hearing raising global concerns. And the First Lady's visit to Washington is drawing political interpretation back here. What does all this mean for Nigeria's democracy and international standings? We'll discuss. We're joined now by Lalu Akonde, host of Inside Sources and former presidential aide. Lalu, good morning and thank you for coming on today.
Good morning, Chimbari.
Well, let's take off from this bill that is before just been introduced, Nigeria's Religious Freedom and Accountability Act of 2026. So, yes, it's still going to go through the hurdle, but chances are that it will eventually scale through because of the persons who are lobbying and the disposition of the president, for instance.
Right.
What's your impression of this?
Well, I think it's another very sad reminder that we have managed our own internal security affairs very poorly over the years. That is just the main issue for me is that now you have foreigners trying to sort us out, because we have refused over the years, over presidential administrations, to deal with the issues. We have treated insecurity with kid gloves, president after president. And killings have persisted over a long period of time with impunity, no consequences, no significant arrests, no significant prosecution of the people that are involved in it. And so now we've come to a situation where you have a foreign nation that is breathing on us and saying that, hey, you guys, you got to fix this. This is what is happening, and it's very sad. Even though I will say, if you ask any victim, they don't care where the help is coming, because if the situation has become as parlous, as ridiculous as it has become in our country for security, the people who are on the receiving end, they don't care where help is coming, where accountability is coming. So that is the kind of mixed feelings that I have about this new stuff.
So what do you, because he did say that they're always going to keep reviewing that list and adding more persons on that list, even if the bill scales through. But we also do know that UAE has released a list. I think the government said they released a list of those concerned, the sponsoring terrorism in Nigeria.
Right.
I think Niger Republic, once upon a time, also threatened to release a certain list.
Yeah.
But in spite of all of this, have we seen any major action from Nigerian government about those supposed sponsors of terrorism?
Yeah, so that's part of what we are talking about, Chamberlain, that there's been so much impunity. Over the years we've had, we know the people, the foreign countries have given us the information as if we don't know it ourselves. We've just not have the boldness and the courage of those who are in charge. I mean, look at what is being said about Malami. that he refused to prosecute. You know, I mean, they are just prosecuting for the war attack now.
And that's the DSS.
Yeah, they're just doing the prosecution now after several years. You know, it must have been at least 4 or 5 years ago.
So maybe he stalled all of those things.
You know, he has to come and answer for himself. But the truth of the matter is that we didn't find any kind of diligent prosecution. I remember there was a time the then vice president had to summon all the attorney generals in the state, you know, to Abuja and brought the attorney general for the federation to say that, look, you guys have the powers to get these things done. What are you doing? You are just sitting on your horse, you know. So over and over again, there are instances and examples of how we have failed as a government, you know, and government after government, not to do these things. We know these people. You know, look, there was a time, now let's remind our viewers, Chamberlain, that General T.Y. Danjuma made some very, very provoking disclosures. And for somebody of his caliber and somebody of his regard to speak the way he spoke just shows clearly that, you know, we are just not ready.
So the army collude. We shouldn't trust them to
you know, it speaks to some very deep-seated systemic rot that has happened in some of the institutions that are meant to provide security. And so if you now have the Americans saying that, look, hey, well, we can't tolerate what is going on, you know, what are you guys doing? Then, hey, it's sad, you know, for us as a nation that is independent, but it is good if it is going to bring a succor and an help. If it will help us to do what is right, oh, then we should shout hallelujah.
So given what General Danjuma said, and several other narratives, in fact, some of what we see playing out today about the former government, Buhari's government, means that the office of the president, or him at that time, they had questions to answer. There's certain things that could have been done. So does this sanction have that kind of, or will it have that kind of pressure or impact in terms of putting pressure on the office of the president to ensure, look, the buck stops at your table, you have to do something?
Yeah, well, I think for this incumbent president, I think he's got the memo very clearly to know that they are going to hold him responsible. We are holding him responsible as a people, you know, that is our leader, is the president. But I think he's gotten the memo that even the Americans are not playing around. I mean, and I think everybody in Nigeria should get him. The question is, how do we now organize ourselves in a very formidable way to deal with this? Because there are still a lot of cracks. There's still a lot of, I know, for instance, that it's possible for a president to want to do things, and I think I've even said it before, but it will take a lot more than declaration. So the president has declared an emergency, a national emergency on security, although I think he didn't go the whole hog of declaring a constitutional state of emergency. I think he should do that. But at least he said that, oh, there's going to be an emergency on security. He's done that a couple of months ago. But you don't see follow-up actions, because the president by himself cannot get things going. But it is still the responsibility of the president to deal with those who are slowing the pace. So we don't expect the president to jump all over the place and get stuff done. But if the president were to give a declaration like he gave, then how come we are still in this situation, you know, up today, down tomorrow? It is still the president that we will depend upon and call on that, look, you declared an emergency. What has happened since then? So that there can be at least hope. But hey, it's the Americans, and God bless them, you know, it's sad to say, they are the ones that are calling us to order to say that you guys got to be alert, you got to be awake to deal with these situations.
And in case the authorities don't know, there are several reports of persons who are doing transactions with their counterparts in the States. It's already affected the international credit rating that the country has. They are finding it very difficult to get funds or credit coming in from the United States to those investments in the country. So if they have to take the clock, what they have to do.
There's going to be a lot of squeeze, financial squeeze, that will affect a lot of Nigerian people. Even, unfortunately, this might even affect businesses because they are going after a lot of the individuals who they believe have a role to play or who have abandoned their responsibility historically and currently. Because if you look at the bill, the Americans are going way back to several decades of people that they think were responsible for certain behaviors and conduct. So this is something else. If they go forward with the global Magnitsky framework, it's going to touch a lot. It's going to unsettle a lot, even in the financial architecture, internationally, that we trace Nigeria and Nigerian related. So they are giving us the wake-up call, and it is good so that our political leaders can sit up and form some kind of resolve that can help us to begin to curtail this thing.
Let's talk about the resolve that the Senate had when they came up with the the Electoral Act Amendment 2026 about that clause, section 65, sub 5 of the Electoral Act. Were you satisfied with what was done?
Well, I think there was a good lesson to learn in how the people can repel, undemocratic conduct of political leaders. Now, I think that the senators, they saw it coming and they tried to play a quick one. It's like a quick switch, because I think that now we have in the books that electronic transmission is in there in the books, and then IREF is now written into the law. So I mean, being a layman, I think that's some progress.
IREF is still not the coalition, as the Supreme Court has said. Senate didn't speak to that directly.
Exactly. So some political commentators and even non-political commentators have said that, look, you got to be very careful. Yes, now electronic transmission has been mandated, but this other proviso that is behind it that says that, well, if something happens, that is what they are going to use to rig the election. Okay? So there is so much distrust. There is so much distrust. It's a case of the poacher, has become the gamekeeper. Because these guys know themselves. I'm talking about the politicians. They know themselves. They know what they do. All of them, whether they are in ADC, the PDP or APC, they've been together at some point. They understand how they frustrate or how they use loopholes to get their result. And that is why we have to listen to them, because I was going to rejoice and say, okay, we got these guys to do the right thing. But those who know how they behave among themselves say, hey, don't be too excited. The game is still on. So my point is that we still have to tell our political leaders that what we are trying to do is to elicit and incentivize the trust of the Nigerian people in the process. That is how the governments that are people that are elected, that is how they get legitimacy, the real legitimacy, and then you feel as a leader, as a president, as governor or whatever elected office, you feel that your people are behind you. Some of the things that we are dealing with today, Chamberlain, even this American intervention, it is because Nigerians don't feel that the government is theirs, quite frankly. So this electoral process, my take is that we have to manage it. We have to come up with a conclusion that begins to bring out the trust of our people in the process, their confidence, to win their confidence back. Look, Yaqub Mahmood, the professor of history, tried to really get people excited, and you have to give him the credit. He got us excited with this area thing. Only for him to totally dash the hopes, and the man had the courage. He left the office without explaining to us. I cannot believe that a scholar, an intellectual, he didn't give any explanation. He just went into dark, silence. Well, that is the problem that we are dealing with. To bring some kind of confidence back. Yeah.
Go ahead, Ayo.
For the constraint of time, Mr. Konde, I'll ask you two questions in one. One of them you've spoken to, and that is the issue of distrust. Now, because of this distrust between the government and the governed, no matter what initiative is coming from any section of government, it is distrusted, even from our own end as media men as well. I'm speaking about that electronic transmission thing, the constraint that the Senate was speaking to played out in 2023. What if there's a glitch? We can't legislate a glitch, but we always come to the conclusion of what if even the glitch was deliberate. You may want to speak to that. But the other one, the international matter we were speaking about, I'm concerned about two things. One, which one is stronger? Political permutations or diplomatic considerations in that draft bill coming from the US? Because I think both have some kind of pull, but which one do you think is most concerning for us? Those are my two questions, Mr. Akonde.
Okay, so on the glitch of 2023, yeah, it is what it is. That is the fundamental reason why we have this national clamor to ensure that we have electronic transmission mandated. And that is why we have to ensure that the process inspires the confidence of the people. To the second question, is it the political permutations or the diplomatic consideration? I think, anybody who doesn't know by now that the Americans are going to be involved in influencing the 2027 elections, that person is completely, you've missed it. They are going to put their hand, they're going to poke nose. All of these things has or could have significant implication for 2027, and that is why I think that the people of Nigeria and our political elites, they ought to understand that it is time for us to do what is right by ourselves, for ourselves. Don't wait until somebody who is stronger than you from the outside begins to compel you to do stuff. When you wait, you are going to get the treatment that Rabiu Kwakwanso has gotten. Rabiu Kwakwanso's name has made it to the list, and everybody is saying, what did Rabiu Kwakwanso do? Yeah, I mean, we know that the guy doesn't seem to know what he wants, but to now go and put his name on that list, it's just curious. That is what happens when the political elites don't deal with the situation themselves.
It changes dynamics. Can you imagine if some of these persons who want to contest for president or elections find their names there?
Yeah.
It means they're going to be cautious as to what do we do next now?
Absolutely.
That demarcates or damages whatever chances they have. But I guess we'll see how all of this plays out as we go on. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you.
That wraps it up today as well on the program. We will see you tomorrow. I'm Chamberlain Osa. Goodbye.
We got some business for you on the hour. I'm Ayo Makinde. Enjoy the rest of your day.